worst Disneyland deaths ever. Welcome back to another reaction video. I have a few friends. I'm out here in LA, so I have a few friends that love Disneyland. Me personally, couldn't care less. My friend hates telling me he loves Disneyland. I'm telling y'all, he loves Disneyland. What's wrong with Disneyland? People that go there, let me know. You can't love it out loud? Love it out loud, it's okay. But they go to Disneyland all the time. So now if I see this video, I'm gonna see what they getting into, and you know, I'm gonna spew these facts into the Disneyland lovers' ears. So they can know as well, as much as me. Without further ado, let's get into this video.
She been command me.
Crushed behind the magic. Deborah Gale Stone was 18 years old when she started her dream job as a hostess at Disneyland's America Sings attraction in 1974. The ride was a rotating theater showcasing the history of American music through animatronic characters. Guests sat in a moving outer ring that rotates to different scenes, while the inner section was stationary. Between each scene, large walls would move, creating temporary darkness as the next set appeared. On July 8th, just 2 weeks after the attraction opened, Deborah was stationed between the stationary wall and one of the
hell no, I already know. She got squished and rattled in between those things. Between the darker walls when it's rotating.
Her job was simple. Guide guests and ensure the show ran smoothly. What wasn't simple was the engineering flaw that would turn deadly. The gap between the moving and stationary walls was just 12 inches at its narrowest point, a space that left no margin for error. At approximately 10:30 p.m., as one scene transitioned to the next, something went wrong. Deborah became caught in the narrow space as the massive wall began its rotation. Security cameras didn't cover this backstage area. There was no emergency stop button within her reach. The hydraulic system powering the rotation exerted thousands of pounds of pressure, designed to move regardless of minor obstructions. Guests in the theater heard screams coming from behind the walls. Many assumed it was part of the show's sound effects. The walls continued their mechanical movement, crushing Deborah.
Someone sitting back there like, damn, the next scene could be scary.
Between them with inexorable force. The compression was catastrophic.
Oh my goodness.
Collapsed first, puncturing her lungs and heart. Within seconds, the pressure fractured her spine and pelvis.
Oh.
By the time other cast members realized something was wrong and stopped the ride, it was too late. When maintenance workers finally separated the walls, they found Deborah's body grotesquely flattened.
Oh, splat!
Medical examiners later determined she remained conscious for nearly 40 seconds as her body was slowly crushed, experiencing
oh my goodness. 40 seconds? 40 seconds might not seem like a lot of time to a lot of people, but get down on the plank, sir, and do a plank for 40 seconds. Test that. See how long 40 seconds really truly is.
Finally came. The next day, America Sings reopened with new safety lights and proximity sensors. Deborah's death became a grim reminder of the machinery behind Disney's magic. The derailment.
Hey, but at the same time, if you really bag it, her death probably saved many more lives than you ever would have thought moving forward. They probably was like, remember that one Deborah thing? Yeah, we gonna put sensors right here, which they did. And then in every other ride and every other change to the park and every other park that heard of that incident, you know, it probably is an injustice, but you know, W Deborah's in the chat.
Marcelo Torres was 22 years old when he visited Disneyland with friends on September 5th, 2003. The California native chose to ride Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, one of the park's signature attractions. The Gold Rush-themed coaster was designed to simulate a runaway mine train. Reaching speeds of 30 miles per hour as it twisted through artificial caverns and desert landscapes.
Derailed?
Torres settled into the front row of the first passenger car, directly behind the locomotive. What Torres couldn't know was that maintenance crews had been performing improper repairs on the ride for months. The previous night, mechanics had replaced a critical wheel assembly, but failed to install a required safety wire that would keep the axle in place. No supervisor had checked the work. As the train climbed the third lift hill, the unwired axle began to work loose from its housing. At 11:22 a.m., as the train crested the hill and began its descent, the front locomotive's undercarriage violently separated from its chassis. Metal screeched against metal as the cars behind it, still moving at full speed, slammed into the derailed engine. The first passenger car, where Torres sat, bore the brunt of the impact. The locomotive's weight crushed inward, compressing the space where Torres was seated. The collision fractured Torres's chest and ribs with such force that bone fragments punctured his heart and lungs.
Oh my days!
Each breath becoming more difficult than the last. Medical examiners later
look at his face. He is going through it. He's going through it. Oh my goodness! Can you imagine? I'm guessing he's probably gonna be alive longer than 40
Found that
seconds.
Torres did not die instantly, but suffocated over approximately 2 minutes as his
Yep.
lungs collapsed.
Oh!
Nearby passengers, many with broken bones and facial lacerations, watched helplessly as he struggled to breathe. When paramedics finally reached the scene, they found Torres still strapped in his seat, his body contorted by the crushed compartment.
Oh my
Blood had
God.
soaked through his clothing and pooled on the ride's track below. His friends seated just behind him had suffered only minor injuries, a difference of mere inches between life and death. The boy who fell from the mountain. Mark Maples was 15 years old when he visited Disneyland with his family on January 3rd, 1964. The Matterhorn
60.
bobsleds had been operating for nearly 6 years by then, thrilling guests with its 80-foot drops and sharp turns that simulated an alpine adventure. The steel-tracked ride, themed after Switzerland's iconic mountain, was the first tubular steel roller coaster in the world. Mark and his friend boarded a bobsled car in the afternoon, securing the simple lap belt that was the ride's only restraint system. As the bobsled climbed the initial lift...
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I got on when I go to Six Flags, I don't go to Disneyland. When I go to Six Flags and I get on some of them all rides, and all you got is not the lap bar. I feel like these are called the lap bar. They be like, yo, over here, don't touch the lap bar. The seat belt. When it's just that one seat belt that goes from that side, from this side to this side, and you just do this over 2 people or 3 people, those are the rides I'm scared as fuck on. There's called like American Revolution. I think that one is just, you just put that on and you just free. There's like Gold Rush, you just sitting there, you free. That rickety ass, you like this going down like ooh, you doing that. Six Flags need to fix some rides, I'm not gonna lie. The one out here in California, they gotta fix it in Valencia.
Mark was visibly excited. Other passengers in nearby sleds later reported that he had been daring his friend to raise their hands during the drops. The cars reached the top of the first hill, preparing for the signature plunge that made the ride famous. What happened next occurred in just seconds. At the crest of the hill, as the bobsled began to pick up speed, Mark suddenly stood up. Whether it was a moment of teenage bravado or a misunderstanding about the ride's mechanics remains unknown. The physics were unforgiving. As the sled pitched downward at 20 miles per hour, Mark lost his balance. His center of gravity shifted forward and the momentum pulled him completely out of the vehicle. Mark fell approximately 30 feet before striking the steel track below. Primary impact was to his skull, causing an immediate depressed cranial fracture. Bone fragments were driven deep into his frontal lobe. Though the brain damage was catastrophic, death was not instantaneous. Medical examiners later determined that Mark remained alive for at least 2 minutes after impact, his breathing shallow and irregular as his brain began to
poured
swell
out
inside his shattered skull. Ride operators found him splayed across the track, still conscious but unable to move or speak. Blood pooled beneath his head, running down the manufactured mountainside.
Well, not me getting nervous off of seeing a cartoon blood. Take a deep breath. Y'all be getting queasy. I'm just waiting for you guys to feel better so that I can play it. I could tell y'all, y'all needed me to pause right there. It's not me.
Rivulets. By the time the park's medical team arrived, Mark had slipped into a deep coma. He was transported to a nearby hospital where, despite emergency surgery to relieve the pressure on his brain, he died 3 days later without ever regaining consciousness.
Oh my.
Decapitated
His
on the
parents
slopes,
or nothing?
Dolly Regine Young was 48 years old when she visited Disneyland in January 1984. The Matterhorn bobsleds had been one of the park's signature attractions for decades, and Dolly was eager to experience the alpine-themed coaster.
Damn! Yeah, here we go again. Damn, this one taking out bodies, huh?
Attractions for decades. And
Take
Dolly
us out
was
the park.
eager to experience the alpine-themed coaster again. The ride featured toboggan-style vehicles that raced through an artificial mountain at speeds approaching 30 miles per hour. Each 3-person bobsled was equipped with seatbelts, but ride operators didn't always verify they were fastened. On January 3rd, Dolly boarded a bobsled in the early afternoon. Whether she forgot to secure her seatbelt or it was improperly latched remains unclear. The ride began normally as her sled climbed the initial chain.
This is the mom. She stood up.
At first, everything seemed fine. Then, as the vehicle navigated a sharp turn halfway through the ride, disaster struck. The bobsled hit a particularly rough section of track known for its jarring bumps. Dolly, without the security of a fastened seatbelt, was jolted upward. The momentum of the speeding vehicle combined with the centrifugal force of the turn was enough to lift her completely out of her seat. In an instant, she was thrown from the bobsled onto the cold metal track, her body splayed across the rails.
And she passed out?
For approximately 4 seconds, Dolly lay on the track, possibly conscious and aware of her predicament. Then came the sound of the next bobsled, already descending the mountain just 20 seconds behind hers. The oncoming vehicle had no time to...
That's approximately 16 seconds to get up, shake your head, look around, go, I'm on tracks. I gotta... before... BOW!
stop. Its steel undercarriage struck Dolly's upper body with tremendous force.
Oh my
The impact
goodness.
severed her neck almost completely, leaving her head attached by only a few tendons and blood vessels. Blood sprayed across the white artificial snow, creating a ghastly contrast that would later haunt the ride operators who discovered her. The bobsled that struck her derailed partially, stranding its passengers above the grisly scene. Those riders reported hearing a sickening sound, part thud, part crack, as their vehicle hit what they initially thought was a piece of the ride's scenery.
They said, damn, it's, ooh, look at bumpy. Shit, what was that? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, next drop. Ah!
When emergency responders arrived, they found Dolly's body wedged beneath the derailed bobsled, her head twisted at an impossible angle. The coroner later determined that death was mercifully quick, resulting from immediate trauma to the spinal cord and massive hemorrhaging. The Toontown tragedy. Brandon Zucker was 4 years old when he visited Disneyland with his parents on September 22nd, 2000. The Roger Rabbit's car Toon Spin...
This Toontown. They had Toontown?
ride had been operating in the park's Toontown section.
Nah, they had Toontown. I was a Toontown fiend. Me and my whole family, we was Toontown fiends. This is crazy. Nah, I wish they still had this. I'd download Toontown right now on stream. Spark up a stream. Y'all gonna watch? You better support me.
The attraction featured spinning cartoon taxi cabs that moved along a track through colorful scenes. Each vehicle could rotate 360 degrees as it progressed through the ride.
It's like a car, the car's ride right now.
The cab. Brandon, an energetic preschooler with bright eyes and brown hair, sat in the same cab as his mother. The ride began normally as their yellow taxi entered the first scene. The vehicle spun gently as Brandon's mother turned the wheel. About halfway through the attraction, as the cab made a sharp turn, something went terribly wrong.
No.
The small opening between the bottom of the cab door and the ride floor was approximately 7 inches, just large enough for a child's body to pass through. In a moment of excitement or imbalance, Brandon slipped down from his seat. Before his mother could react, he slid through the gap beneath the door. The vehicle's momentum dragged him immediately under the moving cab. The metal undercarriage, weighing over 700 pounds, rolled over Brandon's small body. The crushing force caused catastrophic compression injuries to his chest and abdomen.
Ooh.
Most devastating was the oxygen deprivation to his brain, which began the moment his chest was crushed.
Mom ran over his ass.
3 minutes, Brandon remained pinned beneath the taxi as the ride continued to operate. Other guests heard his mother's screams, but couldn't understand what was happening in the darkened attraction.
And when
operators finally stopped the ride and emergency personnel reached him, Brandon was unconscious. His pulse was faint, his breathing almost imperceptible. Paramedics performed CPR as they rushed him to the hospital. Brandon survived the initial trauma but had suffered irreversible brain damage. For the next 9 years, he remained in a persistent vegetative state, kept alive by feeding tubes and constant care. His body grew, but his mind never recovered. Medical experts explained that each day, his brain cells continued to die from the original injury. On January 26, 2009, at age 13, Brandon's body finally succumbed to pneumonia, a direct complication of his bedridden condition. The official cause of death was listed as complications from anoxic encephalopathy. Brain damage.
Bro!
The official cause of death was listed as
again? Anoxic encephalopathy. Bro, I'm tired of seeing this word. Everybody's getting anoxic encephalopathy.
From anoxic encephalopathy. Brain damage caused by oxygen deprivation nearly a decade earlier. Christmas Eve catastrophe. Luan Fee Dawson was 33 years old when he visited Disneyland with his family on December 24, 1998.
I'm not going to Disney.
The holiday crowds filled the park as Dawson, his wife Lu Tui Vuong, and their daughter gathered near the sailing ship Columbia attraction. The Columbia was a full-scale replica of an 18th century sailing vessel that circled the rivers of America. The ship, weighing over 110 tons, was secured to the dock by heavy ropes attached to metal cleats bolted into the wooden deck. At approximately 6:15 p.m., as guests were boarding for the next journey, a cast member attempted to secure one of the mooring lines. The rope being used was not the specified marine-grade nylon, but a cheaper, less flexible polyester substitute that had been installed during recent maintenance. As the massive ship pulled against its moorings,
it got tight. It hit that tight thing. You know what they say, like, when you're anchoring a boat, like with the rope, don't stand next to it because the whip can just snag your ass if the boat's moving, or like to stop the boat. You know what I mean? You seen the videos of the rope or the chains, boom, and it locks. Is he trying to undo it and it snagged his ass? Maybe I should just listen.
The rope suddenly went taut with over 2,000 pounds of pressure. The
Yup.
strain proved too much for the substandard material.
And
With
it
a
broke.
sound like a rifle shot, the rope snapped. The released tension sent the heavy metal cleat flying through the air at nearly 100 miles per hour.
Oh
the
my.
8-pound brass fixture became a deadly projectile, ripping free from its mounting bolts and spinning wildly toward the crowd of waiting guests. Dawson had no time to react. The metal cleat struck him directly in the skull, just above his right temple. The impact crushed his cranial bone inward with such force that bone fragments penetrated 3 inches into his brain. The traumatic injury severed blood vessels and destroyed critical brain tissue instantly.
Oh my
Neurologists later
goodness.
explained that while death was not immediate, consciousness was lost within milliseconds as intracranial pressure spiked catastrophically.
Okay.
Blood poured from the wound as Dawson collapsed onto the festively decorated dock. His wife, standing just beside him, was also struck by the projectile as it ricocheted. The cleat tore through her cheekbone and jaw,
It's like a...
leaving her critically injured but alive. Their young daughter watched in horror as both
Oh
parents
my,
fell.
she had a daughter. They had a kid. What would you do? We still getting on the ride?
Emergency medical technicians reached Dawson within minutes, but the injury was unsurvivable. Despite
Nah,
the
you better give that kid free Disneyland for... Well, she probably don't want to go back. If I'm being real, I wouldn't want to go back. And I'm just listening to this video. She probably don't want to go back to Disney. Fuck y'all, I'ma sue y'all.
rushed to the nearby UC Irvin Medical Center. He was pronounced dead at 8:48 p.m. Just as Christmas Eve celebrations around the park were reaching their peak, his death marked the first guest fatality at Disneyland directly attributable to mechanical failure, rather than guest behavior or pre-existing medical conditions.
Oh, we got ads. Hey, I'm gonna let y'all know right now, I can't afford YouTube Premium, so subscribe.
People Mover Tunnel Crush. Ricky Lee Yama was 17 years old when he visited Disneyland on a warm August day in 1967. The People Mover attraction, which had opened just the previous year,
That
was a
looks
futuristic
fire.
transportation system that offered guests a leisurely journey through Tomorrowland. The ride consisted of small
Tomorrowland.
four-person cars that moved continuously along an elevated track at a steady 5 miles per hour. There were no doors on the vehicles, just open sides that allowed guests to easily enter and exit at the loading platform. Ricky was with friends that afternoon enjoying the park's attractions. Witnesses later reported seeing the teenagers engaging in horseplay near the People Mover, possibly daring each other to jump between moving cars. This dangerous activity wasn't uncommon.
And we already reacted to the Truth or Dares video, so we already know how this gets. We know how sticky the Truth or Dares get. It goes from, I don't know how to do it. But watch my other video.
Thrill-seeking teens, despite clear warnings against it.
And actually, if you guys want to see that video, it'll be probably right here. Up here at the top. The very, very, very top up
A
here.
train of connected cars entered a dark tunnel section near the Adventure Through Inner Space attraction. Ricky made his fateful decision. With his friends watching, he leapt from the platform toward a moving car. The gap between cars was only 18 inches, seemingly easy to cross. But Ricky mistimed his jump. His foot caught the edge of a car, causing him to lose balance. He tumbled downward, falling directly onto the moving track below. The fall itself wasn't far, just 4 feet, but the consequences were immediate and catastrophic. Before Ricky could regain his footing in the darkened tunnel, the next train of People Mover cars rounded the bend. The front edge of the first car struck his body, knocking him flat against the track. The undercarriage, with its wheels and mechanical components, passed directly over him. The weight of the car crushed his ribcage, puncturing his lungs and heart, but death didn't come instantly. As Ricky lay injured on the track, unable to move, additional cars continued to pass over him. Each one inflicted new trauma to his already broken body. The ride's mechanical system, designed to move continuously, dragged him along the track for approximately 340 feet through the dark tunnel. Other guests, seated in cars passing through the same tunnel, heard his screams but couldn't see what was happening in the darkness below.
It was like, what is that? This is a scary ride? Nah, it's just a future ride.
When ride operators finally received word of a problem and stopped the attraction, emergency responders found Ricky's body mangled beyond recognition. The medical examiner later determined
He
that
didn't
had
even
remained
use-
conscious for at least 40 seconds after the initial impact, experiencing the full horror of being crushed and dragged before
He said
blood loss and
mangled.
organ damage finally ended his suffering. Monorail track trespass. Thomas Guy Cleveland was 19 years old on June 7, 1966, when he attempted to sneak into Disneyland during the park's annual Grad Night celebration. The special after-hours event was
we
restricted
went to
high
Grad
school
Night at
graduates
Disney
with
too.
valid tickets, which Cleveland did not have. Determined to join his friends inside, he devised a plan to bypass the main entrance. The Disneyland Hotel sat just outside park property, separated from Tomorrowland by a 16-foot security fence.
Boy, he gonna jump? You gonna try and fly
Up
across?
with barbed wire. Around 1 o'clock a.m., Cleveland scaled this imposing barrier, ignoring the clear warning signs posted along its length. The teenager successfully cleared the barbed wire and dropped down onto what appeared to be an empty service road. What he failed to realize was that he had landed directly on the Disneyland Ofoegbukester monorail track, an elevated concrete beam that carried the futuristic trains between the hotel and the park. Cleveland began walking along the narrow beam toward Tomorrowland. The concrete track was only 32 inches wide, leaving little room for error. A security guard spotted him and immediately shouted warnings to get down. Cleveland either didn't hear or chose to ignore these calls. He continued forward, unaware that Monorail Red was approaching from behind at approximately 30 miles per hour on
right in the back, bow like this.
its regular late-night circuit. The train's operator spotted Cleveland too late to stop. The monorail, weighing several tons, struck the teenager with tremendous force. The impact shattered his spine and fractured his skull instantly.
Oh!
His body was thrown forward but became caught beneath the front of the train. For approximately 70 feet, Cleveland was dragged along the rough concrete beam, his skin and clothing torn away by the abrasive surface. The friction created by his body against the track actually helped slow the monorail to a stop. When emergency
His body slowed the monorail? Have you ever been on a bike or a skateboard, fell and slid with your clothes on? Imagine being hit with a monorail, boom, and being dragged 70 feet like, nigga, GG's for me. I'm gonna just close my eyes and hope that I don't wake up. Real shit.
Responders reached the scene. They found Cleveland's remains wedged beneath the first car. Medical examiners later determined that while the initial impact caused catastrophic injuries, Cleveland had not died instantly. Blood evidence indicated his heart continued beating for nearly 2 minutes as he was dragged along the track, conscious enough to experience the excruciating pain of having his body systematically shredded by the concrete. The nighttime darkness and the elevation of the track meant that many guests inside the park remained unaware of the tragedy unfolding above them.
Oh, they were
Cleveland's
open.
death occurred as graduation celebrations continued nearby. The juxtaposition of youthful celebration and grim mortality separated by just a few dozen feet of air. If you want to see more videos
Damn.
like this,
Hey man, stay safe. Don't do anything crazy. And if something gets you, you know, it is what it is. Appreciate y'all for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about the video and what you guys would do in the situation and how you feel about the situations.